That's right. It's Monday night. Excuse me. Sports on the Hill podcast, episode 307. Coming to you live from the lab. You see, we already got Robbie G live in the lab. We already got DC's People's Champ ready to chime in. Probably got some wrestling on the screen along with playoffs too. Just coming to you live. Short of the highlights from the Defenders game to finish their season at 9-1. Lock in the NFC North Championship game against Seattle next Sunday, 3 o'clock at Audi Field. So it was a good game. We're going to break that down and look forward to the playoff game. Still working on seeing if we can get some tickets. I got a couple of folks that's going, trying to see if I can go. If not, we definitely still going to cover it next week. But before we get into all of that, Robbie G, DC's People's Champ, how y'all doing tonight? What's going on?
I'm doing really well. Trying a lot of new stuff tonight. We've got, if you're watching live on our Twitch feed, we now have a score bot. That way, if any goal happens in any playoff game, as it happens in real time, the score will happen in the chat, which is helpful because then I can relay that information on to you. Also, we've got a live scoreboard going on. We've got a lot of live games happening tonight. Tampa Bay just took a huge lead in their game against the Maple Leafs with a minute and 11 seconds left in the second period. They took a 4-1 lead here. We're also watching the NBA playoffs as well. In that one, we've got the Heat versus the Bucks, and that game is really close right now as well. And so that game, or actually, is not close. I'm sorry. It's the Bucks are running away with an 82-68, and then in the third game we've got live is we've got this other playoff game, which is between the Devils and the Rangers, and that game is tied 1-1. But yeah, so some exciting stuff. Champ, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, gentlemen. I'm good. Just ready to talk about what was a very successful season for the Defenders, and looking forward to their playoff game, and just really good time for DC sports after a pretty subpar season for our Big Four.
Yeah, for sure. It's we'll definitely talk Defenders to start, and then we're going to talk a little bit of NBA playoffs, and then we got Champ here. And we're hoping to have Arun on a little bit later as well, and then in the second hour we'll do our Nats talk, where Carol will break down the week for the Nats and the week upcoming, and then we'll end off with talking about some of these hockey games and the NHL playoffs. So we'll quickly run down all the series, both in the NBA and the NHL playoffs. So a fun and exciting night here for episode 307. Carol, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Robbie. I can't complain. As always, got a lot going on, but it's the path is starting to finally narrow and get to the finish line. Well, the start to the finish line. But yeah, it's been a adventurous day, getting things done, getting ready for the show, and trying to maintain. But yeah, it's a good time. Had some good football. Got some. I've actually been watching some of the NBA, and yeah, I don't understand some of these things. I will be chiming in because I like Steph and Golden State. That series is they said it was gonna be a good one. I'm starting to notice some things, from the outside looking in. I'm definitely gonna bring up during y'all roundtable to see if y'all see the same things or it's just me being me. And it could be just me being me, but we're gonna find out.
Sounds good. Well, let's go take a look. I'm just sharing this to a couple of XFL groups and a couple of Defenders groups real quickly. And I want them to be able to chime in. In addition, let's quickly go back. I know that we only had one, or this is sort of the last week, and our position in the standings in the playoffs was already solidified last week. We talked about that, but it was kind of a good tune-up game. We talked about how this will be the location of the XFL championship, and you kind of want to use it as a walkthrough. You don't want to have a letdown game. And it's important to sort of keep that momentum going into the playoffs. So in this week 10 matchup, Well, I also want to mention who we're playing against. So we'll talk about the Vipers and Sea Dragons game, as well as that Battlehawks Guardians game in just a few minutes. But the Defenders are playing San Antonio in this last week, and the Defenders start off with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, with about 12:41 remaining in the first quarter, pretty early on. And then about 4 minutes left in the quarter. San Antonio gets a field goal, 26-yard field goal, and then at 2:31 left in the first quarter, we answered the field goal of our own, a 21-yard field goal. The second quarter, we have a 1-yard pass for a touchdown, and a pass for a 2-point conversion, and that puts us up 19-3. And then with 3 seconds left, unfortunately San Antonio scores. They get a touchdown, a 1-yard run, and they get a 2-point conversion to make it 19-11 going into halftime. They get a field goal about 8:14 into the with 8:14 remaining, in the third, to make it 19-14. And then just about 5 minutes later, we get a 49-yard field goal ourselves to extend the lead back. And then a touchdown is scored, a 1-yard touchdown by San Antonio. A 2-yard pass conversion failed. So that means DC was up just 2 points going into the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, with 5 minutes, 16 seconds remaining, they get a 2-yard touchdown run, and a 2-point conversion to go up 6. And then with 2:32 left, we get a 4-yard touchdown run. And our quarterback actually ran for a 1-point conversion, since they felt like, hey, it's good to try those 1-point conversions. And you didn't need the 2. You'd just go up by 1 point. And there's not much of a difference to go up by 1 or 2 in this situation. So they go up by 1. And then unfortunately, San Antonio just drives on us. And they almost score a game-winning field goal right at the end of the game. But it was just barely wide right. And we hold on to a very narrow victory. I'll start off with you, Carol. What were some of your thoughts on this game?
This game was interesting, kind of like the previous game where we saw the team have a good lead and seem to, want to get a little pass happy. And unfortunately, we had some turnovers. This game, we also had 2 turnovers and didn't get any for only the second time this season. A lot of folks are, saying that they got lucky, that they let their foot off the gas, so to speak. I can see where that argument comes from, but the way I'm looking at it is because this team is so run heavy and everyone has been putting 8 in the box going into the playoffs. I felt like they wanted to get some of the passing going to show other teams that they can pass, to make them have to play them more honestly. Because honestly, those 2 interceptions that were thrown well, first of all, the first interception was a great play by the defender. Give them that. The second one is the one that has me scratching my head with Lucky Jackson, because they ruled it an interception during the game. But if you go back and check the box score, they ruled it as a fumble. So because the rule is, if the defender and the offensive player get the ball at the same time, the offensive player gets the benefit of the doubt. So when they ruled it an interception to the defender, you can ask my girlfriend, I was in here going off because that's contrary to the rules. But then when you check the box score later, it doesn't show it as an interception, it shows it as a fumble. So I'm not going to blame, like I say, the refs. I've been noticing a tendency for them to be more tedious when it comes to the rules with DC, because they've been handling their business on the field. But I'm not saying that it's something, I'm just saying that's what I noticed. I'm just giving you the facts. When I was doing my notes today and I looked in the box score, it was ruled as a fumble and not as an interception, which I felt was kind of funny. One of the other things that flagged me in this game was we all applaud the ability to challenge any play. But as we all know, in any play, there's holding, grabbing, whatever. And when you slow it down, in instant replay, it looks more egregious than it is. Going back to the pass interference that they threw a flag on that wasn't, that all of a sudden Blandino decided, even with the defender with his head turned and clearly seeing the offensive man had his hand around the man too, it should have been a no call, which it was on the field, but then they overturned it and called it a rule of the penalty, which helped put San Antonio back in the game. So that's just some critiques that I saw. But all in all, for the game, I'm not really upset because with the defense, they've been playing so good for the whole season. Now teams are quick passing and throwing the ball, getting the ball out quick so they can avoid the defensive rush. And like I said, first game, I think the second game of the season where we haven't got to force the turnover. So that's been the recipe for this team to win: pressure and forcing turnovers. Unfortunately, we didn't do either. We got 2 sacks, but not the normal 4 that they're averaging. But they still found a way to win. Even if it was a missed 53-yard field goal, it was a missed field goal. They won. It was 1 point. They won the game. Just to quickly go into the numbers of this game before I get DC's People's Champ, get his opinion. First down, San Antonio had 27, DC had 20. Third down conversions, San Antonio were 8 for 15, DC was 2 for 5. Total yards, San Antonio had 358, DC had 392. Passing, San Antonio had 301, DC had 302. Rushing, DC had 90, San Antonio had 57. Penalties, this is the major right here. DC had 7 penalties for 54 yards, San Antonio 4 penalties for 30. Turnovers, 2-0. And time of possession, San Antonio had the ball for 38 minutes and 38 seconds. DC had it for 21 minutes and 22 seconds and still won the game. Now, looking at those numbers, especially the penalties and turnovers and time of possession, those are 3 key analytics that if you lose all 3 of those in the game, it's highly unlikely you're going to win. But as I say, I look at things differently. This team still found a way to win, even with all of those things going against them in this game. So Seattle's going to be an interesting matchup. Can't wait till we break that down a little bit later. But DC's People Champ, what was your take on this game?
Right. So one of the things, something that really stuck out to me as I look at the all the drives of this game. 3 of their touchdown drives were all 5 plays. All of them were 5 plays. They were 68 yards, 86 yards, and 69 yards. And they were all predicated by big plays in the passing game of 20-plus yards. And I think that's what really is opening the fans' eyes that, yeah, we do have quarterbacks that can throw on this team. Jordan Ta'amu, interesting stat that, and this is why I like watching the games the next day on DVR. His first 5 games, Jordan Ta'amu only had 1 touchdown pass his first 5 games. Only 1. The final half of the season, he had 13 touchdown passes. 13. So it shows that they realized that the defenses were playing them for the run, put, like you said earlier, Carol, putting 8 or 9 in the box, expecting them to run Smith, or see Ta'amu or Derek King run. But instead, they were going out there and they were throwing the football and getting big plays in the passing game. Ta'amu went 15 to 22 for 271. He had the 2 touchdowns, but he did have the 1 interception on the night. But still, it wasn't. It's crazy the fact that you listen to the numbers that CP3 gave, that San Antonio held the ball for a lot longer than we did. They had more yards, total yards, and we had a couple of really costly turnovers. But somehow, some way, we were able to turn that around and still be able to walk away, finishing the season as the only team with only 1 loss on the record books, and really put the league on notice that, hey, the North Division could be represented by this DC Defenders team. The only thing they need to do now is they got to balance it out. That's all they got to do, is just balance it out. If they can balance it out with the run and the pass, I think that this team is going to be a deadly team, not only in this championship game coming up, but in the XFL championship as well. And then in future seasons, even though Coach Barlow even admitted, and he's resigned to the fact, he realizes that Jordan Ta'amu could end up in the NFL this upcoming season, but he still has another very talented quarterback in Derek King that could definitely take the reins, who is also a competent passer as well as a mobile quarterback. So when you have 2 dual threat quarterbacks back there. Defenses they have to figure it out. Otherwise, they're going to get taken down. They're going to get taken over. They're going to get run over. They're going to get just left out for dead. But they just need to balance it out. Only 90 total yards of rushing as compared to 300, 90 yards of their offense was rushing, as 302 yards was passing. So that was a little bit off balance. It was more of a passing type of game instead of a rushing type of game, which is their strong suit. What they need to do is balance it out and get Abram Smith more involved in the offense, really force them to bring 8 or 9 in the box, and then go over the top and really utilize those special wide receivers that they have, such as Lucky Jackson and Chris Blair, Josh Hammond, Brandon Smith. They have some really good pass catchers on that offense. And so just getting them involved by mixing it up with the run. This is a dangerous team moving forward. And I was, again, it was a skin of their hair and, type of victory, but still was a victory nonetheless to keep momentum going into that home playoff game next week.
Yeah, real quickly, I just want to do a scoring update. So the Heat made a huge run here at the end of the third quarter to make it close. And then here they've been playing very well in the fourth quarter. They've cut that lead to a 9-point lead. Again, Miami, which was the 8th seed, has taken a 2-1 lead in this series over the Bucks. But Giannis is back in this game, but this game is in Miami. So this becomes a very important game because if Milwaukee is able to win it, then it's 2-2 and they've kind of got home court back. But if Miami is able to steal it and come up with a 3-1 lead, it would be huge. So we'll be watching this game throughout this first hour and then some. But I just want to give a little update on that. And also, I wanted to give an update to the New Jersey Devils scored a goal. And so they now lead the Rangers 2-1. So the Rangers won the 2 games in New Jersey to start that series. And the Devils did win an exciting overtime game in the most recent game in New York. And now they're leading again in New York. So it's interesting that the road team is leading all the games in that. So just a little scoring update in both of those games. And Carol, let's talk a little bit about sort of strange things in the XFL. So going into this week, it was kind of hard to tell who was going to get that other spot between the Sea Dragons and the Battlehawks. The Battlehawks had a huge win over the Guardians, 53-28 on their Saturday game, but it really hurt them that they allowed the worst team in the league to score 28 points. Because it allowed for the Sea Dragons to pretty much just win their game. Although if certain numbers hit between them, then there's all these different tiebreakers because they'd end up with the same record assuming both teams win. And it was very complicated to see which tiebreakers would hit at which times and which team would move on. But suffice to say, they were able to take care of business against the Vipers and able to win that game pretty significantly, 28-9. And so they were allowed to win over on 2 tiebreakers. One is points scored, but also in the points allowed. They ended up being one of the better defensive teams in the league. And we've played the Sea Dragons twice earlier in the season. One game we won just by 1 point, and that's the most recent game on Sunday, April 9th.
I did the research, Robbie. I was going to break it down.
All right, okay, go
You're
for
stealing
it.
my thunder, Robbie. You're stealing my thunder, man. I did the research.
All right,
yeah, like Robbie mentioned.
Hey, Carol, trust me, I deal with Seth. I deal with that all the time. So
yeah, man, like, hold on, I got the stats, man. I'm trying to be Robbie Jr. I got the stats, man. I got the stats.
All right, be Robbie Jr., Carol. All right, go with break down the stats.
Yeah. As Robbie mentioned, the Defenders were 2-0 against Seattle this season. They played them in week 1, which was the 22-18 victory. It was a low offensive output game first game of the season for each team. The crucial play was the quarterback Danucci fumbled on the almost supposed game-winning drive that he was trying to drive down to secure the victory. That game, like I said, came down to the fumble. Standout players for week 1, Jordan Teamu, 8 for 19, 86 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception with a rushing touchdown. Abram Smith, 11 carries, 28 yards with a 2.5-yard average. No touchdowns. De'Aaron King had a rushing touchdown also. Lucky Jackson, 4 catches, 25 yards. The key player of the game was Michael Joseph. He had a pick six. He had 2 interceptions and 6 tackles in that game. So it was a strong defensive effort that led the week 1 win. And then they played Seattle again in week 8 after they acquired ex-NFL running back Philip Lindsay. And remember, they also have ex-NFL wide receiver Josh Gordon on their squad. So, they're a little stacked also. And week 8 was a 34-33 victory. It was a failed 2-point conversion with 32 seconds left by Seattle, which was the determining factor in this game. The defense held as has most of the season, especially in the red zone and on the conversions. They've been very stout with that defensive line that they have. This game had more offensive fireworks in it. This is as DC's People Champ was speaking about Jordan. This is one of his breakout games. He went 17 for 26 with 247 yards and 4 touchdowns. Abram Smith had 17 carries, 66 yards with a touch. And Chris Blair had a breakout game with 5 catches, 148 yards with a 29.6 yard average and a touchdown. And they defeated them 34-33, lining up for a decisive third battle. We all know how hard it is for teams to beat another team 3 times in one season. But I feel like the X factor is DiNucci, because he tries to, do a little too much, and that cost him in both of our games. And I feel like it cost him again. I watched him play yesterday. He was playing loose, playing free, but he did throw 2 late interceptions that were ill-advised, and they were trying to force to get those 34 points. And you can force him into some bad decisions. So I agree with the sentiment of not really having, I'm not going to say not really having fear, but, I would rather play Seattle than St. Louis. You saw McCarron go off for 6 touchdowns the other day with that offense, and you saw Seattle first half, the way they were stagnant against one of the worst teams in the league. And, I understand why Vegas was 2-8, because they made some dumb plays and dumb mistakes, bad play calls. And then when you get an interception in the end zone, why would you run it out to the 3? And then the coach actually gave him a high five. If I was a coach, I'd have been cussing him out. I'm like, why did you come out to the 3 for 3 yards when you started us on the 3-yard line? We can at least be started at the 20. And then the coach gave him a high five. Now, when I saw that, I said, now I know why y'all 2-8, because y'all have stupidity on the field and stupidity on the sideline. Rob Woodson, I feel sorry for you. Call me if you need a defensive coordinator. I can dust off the old VHS tapes.
Yeah, it's an interesting league, because teams sort of showed up some weeks and didn't show up other weeks, and you can't count any team out for sure. And as you said, it's really hard to beat a team 3 times. But I am excited that this game is in Washington. Our fans have been rowdy and really fun. I hope that you guys find a way to go to the game. I'm very disappointed that they switched it to Sunday. If it was Saturday, I would be there. On Sunday, I did promise my wife that I'd go to a Tina Fey show, which I am excited about, but it's just unfortunate that's at the exact same time. And we bought tickets a long time before they ever announced the switch. Well, actually, when I got the tickets, they were supposed to play the Saturday game, and then they switched it on me. So not much I can do about that. But it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup for sure, because I definitely think that Seattle has some really good weapons. I am really interested about the quarterback for the Battlehawks, and I think an NFL team is going to pick him up. So it'll be interesting to see if what St. Louis does next year, and if they're able to be as dominant, because I think the quarterback play was a huge reason they were so successful this year, and their fan base was great. But
you remember AJ McCarron was in the league. He got
I'm about to say AJ McCarron's been there before, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's back there again.
Yeah. So
he showed some things, that maybe he can, get another somebody give him a shot. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely better than a lot of the backups in this league at this point. So or at least it looked like it in that game. So Champ, what are some of your thoughts going into this playoff game?
Very interesting game indeed, given the fact that the combined margin of victory in both games was just 5 points. So Seattle plays this team very close. But as evident in the last game, it was clear that, it was more of an offensive battle between the two. And this is one that we won on the road as opposed to just winning by 4 at home. But I think that as CP3 mentioned, it was a big game for Jordan Ta'amu. So Seattle's going to definitely be cluing in on the fact that the last time they played Jordan Ta'amu, he absolutely went off with 4 touchdown passes. So they're going to definitely be most likely playing for that passing game and definitely leave open the chance for Abram Smith to have a big game rushing. And so I feel like that's what DC needs to do, is that running game needs to be established early and often. Get Abram Smith going, even get Raquel Armstead going as well as another option in the backfield.
Armstead got cut 2 weeks ago.
Did he really?
Yeah, they released him, and they the kickoff specialist dude, number 13, that broke that kickoff. I can't remember his name, but he's they got him in the lineup, and they let Armstead go 2 weeks ago.
Oh wow. Well, there you go. But no, you know what? I'm not surprised because Armstead wasn't that good, honestly. I'm just being honest here. But
he didn't really show me much either.
But Abram Smith, definitely, they got to get him going early and often to really open up the pass game and really get Seattle off balance. Because if they continue to just be one dimensional, either do pass or run, and most of the time they'll be one dimensional and they can be had. And just one little note here: Ben DiNucci can't beat a team from DC. I'm just noticing that he couldn't do it when he was a backup in Dallas, and he can't do it for Seattle. So. I'm feeling fairly confident, but as Robbie has alluded to on several occasions, it's hard to beat a football team 3 times in one season, and now DC has to do it in order to go back to the Alamo Dome and try to become the XFL champions. But it's got to start here, and it's got to start in front of one of the best fan bases in the XFL in Audi Field in order to do that. But again, the run game has to be established early and often if they're going to be successful against Seattle, because Seattle saw what we did offensively in terms of the air, but didn't do much with the run. So they're going to be keen to want to try to set up a defense where they stop the pass, which will lead the run game open to like really do its thing. So that's what they need to do. Run first, run often, and then open it up. Pass game can then flourish, and you have a balanced offense, and I think you win this one. Defense will take care of itself and be able to take care of Ben DiNucci and that offense, and they should be able to win this game.
I want to give a quick little scoring update. We've got a Jonas Siegenthaler goal here in that New Jersey game, Carol. I know you remember him, former Capital. He actually ends up scoring the game-winning goal for them. That puts them up 2-1. They eventually get an empty net goal, but the Devils win that game 3-1, and they tie that series 2-2. So now the road team has won all 4 games in that series. So that's kind of interesting. It was just 4-3. It's 4-1 in the Toronto Tampa Bay game. To start the third period, it was a 4-on-3 with Tampa Bay having an opportunity to really break things open. There's some rough stuff happening in this one as well. But right now 16:50 left in the third period. Tampa Bay is still up 4-1 over Toronto, which I'm kind of happy about. I want the series to go long, and Toronto won a game that they shouldn't have, in the last game. They're just, the refs bailed them out hard. They were outshot by almost 2-1, throughout the game, and barely, played them, but yet was gifted kind of a win in the final minute of the overtime, the first overtime. It'll be interesting to see how this game turns out. So I just want to give a couple little scoring updates on those. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in on our Facebook feed. We have a lot of XFL fans joining us. I appreciate everyone for giving their thoughts on that. And they're saying it's supposed to rain as well in the DC game. So it'll be interesting to see if weather has a factor. It hasn't really been too much of a factor in our home games up until this point, but obviously it could be a factor in this upcoming game. So thank you for doing.
There's going to be some running the ball going on.
Yeah, which is good for us.
One thing I haven't seen them do is what Abram Smith is to do when he tosses. I mean, he has that burst. I haven't seen him do any tosses to the outside. So hopefully we'll see some of that. And if they, like I said, they incorporate the special teams guy into it too with some they already have the zone read and they do the quick slant to Lucky Jackson, just like we used to see with RG3 and Pierre Garçon back in the good old RG3 days. So I'm thinking that they're really gonna handle their business. They're 3.5 point favorite at this point. And like I said, with Danucci at quarterback, I'm not sold on him. He makes mistakes. He gets a little full of himself. He was dancing around on the field yesterday. And if Vegas would have scored one more time, they'd have been in trouble because they had to score 34. And he threw those 2 interceptions when they had 28 trying to get to that 34. So, like I said, I'm not really sold on him. So I feel like Greg Williams will hopefully have a better game plan than to stop the quick passing game, because that's definitely one of their strong suits with the running gun offense type that they have with their slot receivers, crossing routes, option routes underneath. And those things are to mitigate the pass rush of the defense and just to get into the holes of the defense and the zones that he runs. So it's going to be an interesting chess match between the offensive and defensive coordinator. But with the defenders' offense, being predicated so much on the run with the zone read, with the dual threat quarterbacks and a talented running back, and with the, vertical threats that they're showing with Lucky Jackson, touchdown in 4 straight games. Chris Blair breaking his own record the week after he set the record, and Hammond making plays. It's going to be a very interesting battle, especially for it being the third time these teams meeting this season.
By the way, that kick returner's name is Puka Williams.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't remember. I ain't remember the hood name.
All right. I think we've broken it down pretty well. I do want to quickly mention the other side of the XFL bracket. And talk a little bit about playoff format. I do feel a little bit bad for the Battlehawks fans because they are significantly better than than some of the teams in the other side of the brackets. I'm wondering if it should just be the top team in the division and then the next 2 records in the whole league. They did that for a while in MLS, and for as long as the league is as small as it is, that might make some sense, or expand it to 12 teams, and then maybe you have 2 wild card teams play each other for the right to play in the championship game or something like that, and give a bye to the top seeds.
Yeah, it would have been a reboot in the first season. You want to just get the thing over with first before you get all fancy. Just get it. Let's get a season under our belt. Let's get a champion and rebuild and, improve from this year and go into the year 2. It's a little early to get into all of that right now when you're trying to retool after it failed once already. You don't want to run before you can crawl.
Right. I understand that, but it's just tough to see that the Renegades, a 4-6 team, making the playoffs over a Battlehawks team who, as a fan base, I really think, maybe is the second most passionate fan base in all of XFL. I feel for them because they lost on a tiebreaker and they're significantly better than the Renegades, in my opinion. But it is what it is. So the Renegades will play the Roughnecks. It's a 4-6 team versus 7-3 team. That game will be on Saturday at 7. It's a battle for Texas. Interesting matchup. Carol, any thoughts on the other side of the bracket?
No, not really. I haven't really watched too much of the South. I watched the game on Saturday. I believe it's just pretty much a rematch of that game. And it was I'm not gonna say unadventurous, but it was just like there was no real flow to it. It's like neither team wanted, because it's like neither team really wanted to win the game. It just seemed like, it wasn't the same thing what I've seen from the North teams that you see in the South. So I'm not gonna say it's a vast difference, but you can see the difference in the quality of play.
Yeah, for sure. Champ, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm in the same boat as Carol. It's like the only time I really paid attention to these 2 teams when they played the Defenders, and they played tough. They played very tough, and so clearly these 2 teams are going to play each other very, very tough. It's a championship game, so they got to go balls to the wall and everything like that. But it's hard for me to say who I really see coming out of this. If anything, it could be Houston. I mean, Houston's got to be the favorite. It's at home, and they had the best record in their division. So clearly they got to be the favorite, but any given Saturday or any given Sunday, a team can just blow up and really show what they can do. I mean, look at what Orlando did to DC early on in the season in their undefeated streak, and no one thought Orlando could do it because Orlando is one of the worst teams in the league, but they were able to do it. So clearly, it's hard to say who will come out as the victor in this one, but maybe Houston. It may end up being Houston versus DC in the XFL championship.
And currently, Houston is sitting at a 6-point favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it'll probably play out that way. But we've seen crazier things happen, for sure. All right, any final thoughts, Carol, before we switch into our NBA talk a little bit later than expected? I appreciate people for tuning in and being a part of the lively discussion. But I do want to break down a little bit of the NBA playoffs as well.
Now I'm just going to leave with, I'm going to let you guys talk NBA, step off for a quick minute before I get ready for Nats talk after you finish the NBA. But like I say, I haven't watched all season. A lot of folks, say Sacramento is a good team and, they up and coming with the draft picks. But this Fox kid, when did he become the new James Harden where he can just throw his head back with no contact and get the foul call? I'm not, like I said, I told you I don't like the new NBA with these flagrant BS2s and all this other stuff. And I got to talk about my man Draymond. I got to because I've been quiet about it. But if you grab a grown man's ankle while he's trying to run down the court and he's trying not to fall and he steps on your torso, that is not a flagrant foul worth being ejected and suspended the following game for. Because if you grab a grown man's foot, whatever happens, happens. So I'm still going with my Warriors. They got to win one on the road. So they had the worst road record in the league, only won 11 games on the road. So they got to pull one out. I'm thinking they're going to pull the game out on Wednesday and go back home and close it out after it's all said and done. Sacramento, I like they have a good squad, but we saw their youth in that game taking threes with 17 seconds left on the shot clock. Game on the line, and they, the youth is, the talent is there, but the youth is still there also. But that's pretty much all I have to say. I could talk about some else, but that Golden State Sacramento series, the one that really, the only team I really watch and follow, I say, is Steph and the Warriors. But I'm starting to notice some of these soft calls, man. I mean, Fox, he throw his head back every time, and they get the foul call. And I'm like, I can play in the NBA doing that.
Yeah. Champ, do you have any
but
quick
I'll
thoughts
step off and let you guys talk.
Yeah, Champ, do you have any quick thoughts on any of that stuff, or Champ?
Huh?
Do you have any quick thoughts on anything that Carol was talking about, or?
Honestly, I not watched a single NBA playoff game. Once the Wizards were eliminated, it was just like I kind of lost interest and put all my energy into the defenders and into wrestling. But it was very interesting to see that sweep that happened earlier on this week, though. I think I mentioned in our group chat about it. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. What was that sweep at? Where was it?
The NBA one you're talking about?
Yeah, I forget which one it was.
It was the Philly over Brooklyn.
Yeah, that was very interesting to me because I thought that was going to be a much more competitive game than it was. And the fact that they got swept, I think it was Brooklyn that got swept. It was absolutely shocking to me because I would have never thought in my wildest dreams that the Nets would have got swept like that with but it's just crazy to me. But the only other thing I could talk about with basketball is the fact that the Wizards fired Tommy Shepard as the GM and they retained Wes Unseld Jr. as the head coach. So now I'm going to be paying attention to see who's going to be the new GM. And my question is going to be if that new GM is going to ultimately still retain Wes Unseld or if he's going to seek a new head coach. I mean, Wes Unseld hasn't been doing a bad job, but he hasn't been doing a great job either. So I'll be interested to see what happens there. But I could drop off and let you in a room talk some NBA basketball, and I'll just hang around for a little bit.
It sounds good. Real quick, before I let you go, I'll let you do your No Spots podcast little preview, and then that way you can get that in as well. Because you probably won't be joining us for the Nats or the Caps talk, or not for the Nats or the hockey talk rather. But yeah, let people know what's going on in the No Spots podcast while I fix the display.
Absolutely. We just had our 200 episode this past weekend. Thank you for everybody who's been listening to it. We got some pretty big love on Twitter for it and things like that. This coming weekend, we will the topic that we were going to do for our 200th episode will be taking place this weekend. I won't say what it is. You just have to tune in to find out, but it's a really cool one, and it has to do with our 5-year history as a podcast. So we'll talk about that, plus what's going on this week, including Raw that's going on right now that I'll be watching in the morning, as well as all the other wrestling shows that's happening this week, as well as a New Japan recap where a former WWE superstar who was a champion in Japan just lost her championship but has re-signed in Japan and will be staying in Japan a lot longer. So we'll talk about all that and more this coming Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, twitch.tv/TrueNoSpotsPod. If you can't join for the live stream, make sure you check out SportsOTHP.com and click the podcast partners button to listen to the audio for not only episode 201, but episode 200 as well.
Yep, that sounds good. So this